Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I move private members' business item 3394. When people call 000 for their mental health or for a loved one, they are often in crisis and in desperate need of mental health care and support. Far too often here in New South Wales, that call is responded to by police. People with lived experience, their carers and families, clinicians, experts, and the police themselves all agree that this is not the right response. Lisa Topic, mother of Courtney Topic, who was shot by police in 2015, 41 seconds after arriving in response to a call from concerned bystanders, described the current New South Wales system as sending a hairdresser when what you need is a plumber. Jody Knott lived with schizophrenia and was experiencing a psychotic episode and was unarmed and naked when responding police officers brutally beat, pepper sprayed and arrested her in what a district judge called an act of gratuitous cruelty. Tammy Shipley, a 47-year-old Indigenous woman, sought help from police while experiencing a psychotic episode in 2022 and died in custody without receiving any mental health care. Tammy is remembered by her mother Vicky and brother Joel as a loving, caring and beautiful mother of 5 whose love shaped her children's lives. Jesse Deakin was 43 when he was fatally shot by police in his own home in 2023 after a neighbour called an ambulance out of concern that he might be self-harming. What particularly breaks my heart about these incidents is that it's not just that the state's response to these calls for help was inadequate. The response itself caused preventable harm. No response at all would have been better than the treatment that Courtney, Jody, Tammy and Jesse received. And these are not isolated stories. 926 lives were lost to suicide in New South Wales last year. Over 7,000 people currently live with mental illness in New South Wales prisons. And there were 52 people in mental health crisis killed by New South Wales police in the 5 years to July 2023. Being the peak body for mental health consumers said, quote, "With the right processes in place, safe transfers, service access and funding, these traumatic events need not be repeated. We have models of care that we know work, that are effective, minimise risk, save costs, and most importantly, save lives. By continuously underfunding mental health services in the community, the Minns Labor government is failing its most vulnerable citizens. Their stories must be remembered," end quote. Last night, Judy Deakin, mother of Jesse Deakin, Nicole Allen and Cherie Castagna, cousins of Jody Knott, and Lisa Topic, mother of Courtney Topic, joined people with lived experience of mental illness and police violence and their loved ones and allies for a vigil outside Parliament House and for a screening of the Brutal Force documentary. These families have been tireless advocates to ensure that no other family goes through what they have. I heard from them that they've listened to every statement, read every media release and attended every meeting and roundtable that successive governments have asked them to participate in. What they want to see now is action. What they deserve to see is action, and what we owe them is action. People experiencing a mental health crisis need care, not cops. The Minister for Mental Health and the Minister for Police have been clear that they agree. But it's very clear that this reform, despite no one opposing it, has not been treated as an urgent priority by this government. The response from the government that they are working on it and want to get it right has been essentially the same response for the past 2 years. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Other jurisdictions like South Australia already have models that work, and we've even had successful trials of a health-led mental health emergency response in Western Sydney. The joint statement, "Having a mental health crisis is not a crime," led by Being, has been co-signed by over 20 key organisations that support mental health, disability and justice. This level of consensus on the solutions that are needed is notable and important. I urge members to support it.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I want to start by proposing an amendment to the motion, which is
in paragraph 1, omit paragraph 1 and insert instead that this House notes that using police as primary or first responders to mental health emergencies in New South Wales can cause harm and even fatal consequences, with the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission finding in 2022 that of the 157 critical incidents reviewed between 2017 and 2022, mental health crises or self-harm were linked to a substantial number of those critical incidents. And in paragraph 4, omitting that this House supports and inserting instead that this House notes, and also in paragraph 4, omitting all words after Wayside Chapel. I do thank the member of the motion for bringing this motion. The government does not oppose the motion with the amendments that I have moved. And look, fundamentally, this is a topic that has exercised some time in this chamber, in budget estimates, in community contributions and events that I have attended. I know the member has attended. I want to reiterate once again to her and to anyone who is listening that fundamentally myself, the Minister for Police and the Minister for Health are in agreement with the substance of this motion. We are, and that was acknowledged by the mover. Police are not the right people to respond in circumstances where someone is having a mental health crisis but does not represent a danger to themselves or others. Those people need care from experts in health-led responses that meet them where they're at and don't potentially escalate their the distress that they are experiencing. Police play a critically important role in our community. They do, but they're not qualified mental health professionals, and it's not their role for them to be that. I understand the mover of the motion and others in the community are frustrated that this is taking time. I do, and I recognise that that is what is motivating the advocacy of the member and others. I've met with Lisa Topic. I've met with Judy Deakin. I know that this is a genuine area of reform that they want to see moving. I simply say this: yes, the motion does recognise that on a number of occasions I've acknowledged that this is work we want to do, but we're taking the time to get it right. And that is absolutely the case. And I place on the record one of the most important reasons for that is that as the government, we have a responsibility to our workforce to ensure that when we make these changes, they are part of that journey. What we are fundamentally asking here is for police to do less of this work and health professionals, whether they are in parts of New South Wales Ambulance, our paramedics, whether there are other parts of New South Wales Health, for example in the PACER program, to do more. And as we make that transition, working with our workforce and their representatives is a key priority for us, and that is taking time.
Further speakers? The Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I wanted to just offer a few remarks in response from the opposition in relation to this motion and acknowledge Dr Cohn for moving it and the very, very clear passion and sensitive way that she puts these issues on the agenda. I think it's really important, and I know it's something that means a lot to her in her role as the Green spokesperson for health and mental health. I also just wanted to acknowledge the individuals and the families and the incidents that Dr Cohn shared in her opening remarks. They really are horrific stories and things that no family should have to go through, and it's certainly something I think all of us, when we hear that, it is very confronting. Any inappropriate actions should never be condoned or excused, and I think for those families who are willing to and are brave enough to sort of share their stories and to be able to seek support, that's very important, and it should also be acknowledged. I will also indicate that the opposition will be supporting the government's amendments, I should say, but it doesn't mean that we don't agree with the sentiments of Dr Cohn, that there really are issues here that need to be addressed, particularly when it comes to the support that is available for people who are having those mental health emergencies and what that looks like. And I particularly wanted to acknowledge part 2A of the motion, where Dr Cohn has called out the fact that people with lived experience and their families and loved ones, and also police and clinicians and experts, agree that police should shouldn't be the primary responders in mental health emergencies. And that's something that I've had raised with me in the 6 months or so that I've been Shadow Minister for Mental Health. I think we all are on a bit of a unity ticket here where we would like to see the best possible outcomes. We want these mental health emergencies to be seen as health issues rather than involving the police where that can be the case. And there is absolutely more work to do, and it shouldn't be something that is an afterthought of government. It should be front and centre. How you can get the right people working together to get the right outcomes for these individuals is actually what the end goal should be. I also just wanted to mention part 4 of the motion, which may, depending on how the House votes, be amended, but particularly the statement that was released. And I have to say, as the Shadow Minister for Mental Health, I am aware of the statement. It's only been released very recently. I haven't had the chance to sit down with all of the organisations or even with being as the sort of main organisation driving this, but they are a very, very serious and dedicated bunch of co-signatories that I think the fact that many organisations are putting their name to this statement certainly gives it weight in the eyes of the opposition. I look forward to meeting and engaging further with some of these organisations to go into detail a little bit more about what they're after, particularly calling for the public release of the comprehensive gap analysis report. I absolutely support that, prioritising community-based programs as well. So I think there is more we can do in this space, and I thank the member for bringing this motion.
Ms Sue Higginson.
Mr Deputy President, I support the motion of my colleague, Dr Amanda Cohn. We need to understand there are real people with real families who suffer and die because of police responses. Jodie Knott, who was subjected to abuse, assault and chemical spray whilst naked in Western Sydney as she screamed, "I'm terrified of you people, go away." Colin Burling, a 45-year-old man in Waterloo who died after being sedated by police and yelling, "I can't breathe," 3 times. Help. Adam Salter, a Lakemba man, shot to death during a mental health episode, after which 4 police officers got their heads together and agreed to lie about what happened. And Krista Koch, who was tormented by police as she was experiencing a form of psychosis, and then the police murdered her. And of course, Jessie Deakin, and to Judy, who spends every waking minute advocating for her son now gone. There are too many names. Every person who dies, who is injured, who is traumatised, is one person too many. My colleague's motion is right. This issue is urgent. It's a matter of life and death, and I'm gravely concerned that the process of negotiation between New South Wales Health and the New South Wales Police Force has served as a smokescreen by which to delay meaningful and urgent reform. We have a police force in New South Wales that is out of control, and they've got to stop turning up to these sort of call-outs. The recent independent review into toxic police culture found that every single woman interviewed in the New South Wales Police Force disclosed harassment and abuse without exception. Police are subjecting women in their own ranks to serious harm. Women who are blackmailed into having sex, subject to racial slurs and choked in the name of teaching them the ropes. The reality we face is that a memorandum of understanding alone won't fix the systemic and toxic culture that is rife in the New South Wales Police Force, which pose the most acute risk to people experiencing mental ill health. What we need is a radical program of reform, oversight, and then that path runs through the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission. They are asking for more powers. This government's not responding. The watchdog's been forced to take the police to court. We need reform. We need a different kind of policing in New South Wales. The time is here, and we certainly don't need police responding to people who need a health response. And we need this reform urgently, and we need it now.
Further speakers? The mover in reply.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President, and I thank members who've contributed to debate on this motion. Firstly, to the Minister for Mental Health, I acknowledge her consistent comments on the record, as well as meeting directly with people who are impacted by this issue. I appreciate that her engagement seems to be very genuine on this issue. But fundamentally, the government response today is the same response that we've heard for the past 2 years. All of the relevant ministers agree that's important, that's a good thing, but it's not enough. People are still coming to harm on a regular basis because those words haven't been translated into action. In September 2024, we were told that a senior level officers group across health was working on this piece with police. In March 2025, the framework was developed. In June 2025, we were told the work was underway within government. In August 2025, that the government was working to develop a framework across the relevant government agencies. And in December 25, community consultation was ongoing. In March this year, we heard that it was an urgent priority, but that the government couldn't rush things. And in June, that they didn't want to get too ahead of the process. And now today, we're being told about the importance of bringing the workforce on board, which of course I agree with. But this has already been underway for 2 years, and the reasons just don't stack up for this having taken so long. What the joint statement referenced in the motion calls for is not new. And it's disappointing that neither the government nor the opposition can bring themselves to back that in. The Greens won't be supporting the government amendment, which waters down the motion, and that's extremely disappointing. As I've already noted, that extraordinary solidarity and consensus between those really well-respected organisations that have signed this joint statement, it's notable and it's important, and that's why we should back it in. And those calls which are being removed from the motion are broad and really quite agreeable and not new. It's to fully fund critical mental health services in New South Wales, include publicly releasing the results of the comprehensive gap analysis report, collaborating with consumers, carers, clinicians and the community mental health sector to plan how to fill these gaps, and committing to fully fund critical mental health services by 2030. To prioritise investment in community-based programs, including step-up, step-down services across the state and community living supports for people living with severe and complex mental health challenges. I'll note that those initiatives have actually been proven to be cost-saving. The statement calls for a health-led response as the default for mental health emergencies, and a dedicated mental health crisis line, and a legislated Human Rights Act which explicitly protects people living with mental health and psychosocial challenges, including the right to liberty, health and freedom from cruel, inhumane or degrading treatment. It's disappointing that that's something we can't agree to today. I thank the Shadow Minister for her sensitive engagement with this topic, and I hope that this is not the end of this conversation.
Okay, we have item 3394